What's up and welcome back to the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I'm Tim Geddes and I'm joined by the new face of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Was anybody else thrown off by that intro?
I didn't see it coming. It looked awesome.
Barrett hit me up and he was like, I've been getting a little bit more involved in like trying to make the game shows better. And he's been absolutely kicking ass if anyone hasn't noticed with all the B-roll and all the fun ideas and stuff. And one of his ideas, he's like, I want to do custom intros for some of our bigger reviews. And I'm like, that is a fantastic idea. So there you go. Our first one for Dying Light 2. We got a fun one planned for Horizon. I'm actually having Carter Harrell make a new custom jingle just for Horizon, so we'll see how that goes. But shout out to
I was in killing the game. You know what I was inspired by? I was out taking a stroll, and there was a hint of something in the air. You know what it was? Blessing.
Yeah.
Barrett, I know exactly what it was. Go ahead and say it.
It was review season. That's what
it was. Review season, and this is one of the first reviews of the year, of course. So we are being joined by a very special mega cast here on the Kind of Funny Gamescast. It's not just the new face of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr. It's not just one of the coolest dudes of video games, Greg Miller.
Hi, Tim.
It's also the master of hype, Snowbike Mike.
Tim, what up? Thanks for having me.
And one of my favorite people in the world. I haven't done a show with her in 2022, so I'm very excited to have this happen. And now, the one and only Janet Garcia.
Yo, what's good? Happy to be here.
I lied. We did the Game of the Year together, but that was the best episode we've ever done of this show. So let's have a little repeat here, right?
Exactly.
That's the type of energy I'm trying to bring here, because this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast, where each and every week we get together to talk about video games and all the things that we love about them. You can get it on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames or roosterteeth.com. You could also get it as a podcast by searching your favorite podcast service for Kind of Funny Gamescast, and we'll be right there for you. If you wanted to get the show ad-free, if you wanted to watch it live as it's being recorded, and if you want the exclusive post show, you got to go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like our Patreon producers, Gordon McGuire, a new name. Shout out to you. We appreciate you very much. Big old Gordo. James Davis makes Pranksy, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, First Responder, ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, and Casey Andrew. Bless, what do you have to say about Gordon McGuire?
Gordo!
It's the fact that in Lizzie McGuire, her friend is named Gordo, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's just what I wanted to say.
Do you think it's the same person?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's them.
It must be. It must be.
There's no other answer for it.
They married Lizzie McGuire and they took her last name.
Canon.
Good for him.
If you don't have $1 to toss our way on Patreon, that's totally cool. You're out there buying video games, and if you're buying them on the Epic Game Store, make sure you use our Epic creator code, Kind of Funny, and it helps us out a lot anytime you're buying anything there, whether it's the Fortnite bucks or the Rocket League bucks or any types of bucks. Epic creator code, Kind of Funny. We love you and appreciate you. Kind of Funny Gamescast is about to be crazy because, Bless, give me it one more time. What is it?
Tim, when you go outside and you look out, right? You look at the trees, you see the leaves changing colors. You feel the air on your skin, and you can only know one thing, Tim. It is hashtag review season.
Mm-hmm. And that means that there are going to be weeks where you're getting multiple Kind of Funny Gamescasts in 1 week. You'll just have to stay on your toes and find out when all of that happens. But there's a ton of games we're going to be talking about. Some of them full reviews, some of them partial reviews, some of them just impressions. But you're going to want to stay tuned right here to the Kind of Funny Gamescast for all of the latest and greatest. Speaking of all of that, I want to talk to all of you about Dying Light 2. Greg Miller, I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose who gets to go first.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. I was prepped just to go first. You know what I mean? Then you do that.
You can choose you.
Yeah, but then everybody's going to make fun of me for doing that.
Yeah.
No, kick it off, big dog. Set the tone.
Kick it off, Greg.
Dying Light 2 is all about the journey and not about the destination, Tim. Here's what I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen. If you have been interested in Dying Light 2, if you enjoyed Dying Light 1, if you've just seen stuff and you've been like, oh man, a parkour zombie game, that seems like fun. You're going to have fun with this game. And I think it's important to put that out at the top because I'm pretty sure this review is going to turn into us beating its dead corpse, no pun intended, for quite some time. Because Dying Light 2 does the hallmark of what I always think of a PS2, PS3 era game, which is leave you with the worst possible taste in your mouth by giving you such an annoying ending, both in terms of the battle mechanics, them just throwing waves and waves of enemies at you, and then just an unsatisfying payoff to an otherwise great, really fun game to play. And so I wanted at the top that we all like this game. We all enjoyed our time with this game. And I've had individual conversations with everybody. We'll see where everybody's actually at on the scale as we go. But I do think we're all a little bit mad at how the journey ended. But it's important to point out that's like 20, 25 hours of gameplay we all had to get to that ending to then be like, what the fuck? Blessing, you're the freshest here. You just beat the game today. Yeah. Or we're trying to. I know you're running into many bugs, as we all did with the ending. Where are you?
So I did beat the game. I think the way I would describe my experience with Dying Light 2 is the fact that Dying Light 2 is a game that I absolutely love, but the game absolutely hates me in the way that there are so many times where I felt absolutely disrespected by like story beats where I'm all in on the story, right? And this is especially for the first 2/3 of the game. I was all in on the story in the way that I think for where my expectations were at for Dying Light 2's story, my expectations were on the floor. I wasn't expecting to get anything worthwhile. I wasn't expecting to get characters that I would love or anything like that. And granted, right, like I don't think I'm gonna look back at this game and think about any of his characters or think about like any of the big story moments. The story in Dying Light 2 reminds me of how I feel about like CW stories in terms of like Arrow or The Flash, where it is I get a full season of a show that like has one or two, maybe 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 episodes, but then the rest is kind of like the garbage you watch just to get there. That's kind of how I feel about Dying Light 2, where like for a lot of it, I felt like the story was serviceable, right? It's kind of your run-of-the-mill zombie story. Like there's infected. You got it's Dying Light, right? So you're like during the nighttime, the zombies are even more powerful, and like you play as Aiden, who is infected and has to like stay in the light, stay in the UV in order to not turn and all this stuff. It's exactly what you'd expect, but I think there are moments of heart and moments of like, oh shit, I did not see that coming in the story. That it's really exciting and really good and really hits. But then right after, you'll get another story beat where it's like, all right, I don't care about this, or you'll get to the end and go, all right, well, I didn't like that at all, which was my story with it. Gameplay wise, I was really surprised by Dying Light 2. I, again, did not have big expectations. I remember during E3, it was me, Mike, I think Andy, and I forget if anybody else is there, but we watched one of the streams that was Dying Light 2 and them breaking down what the actual gameplay was going to be like, what existing in the world was going to be like, them talking about game states, right? You can partner with the survivors, the peacekeepers, and what you can do to the world based on your decisions. And I think during that E3, I think all of us were like, oh, this looks pretty good. Like this actually is kind of exciting. And then over the year, I think we've just had time for our expectations to dampen as like, there was no hype for it, I feel like, at least out of us. I know Mike, I think out of all of us was probably the most excited going in. But over the year, I think that excitement just dampened. And even from the audience, I wasn't seeing that many people get hyped for Dying Light 2. And I think that is the proximity that it is releasing with Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring and all these other games coming out. I think when you put it next to those, it's like, all right, am I really excited for Dying Light 2 when I have Pokemon Legends Arceus in my pocket? Maybe not as much, but getting into Dying Light 2, when you get into the motions of it, the game is actually really fun and really well designed in the way that like the skill tree abilities are really good. It's a lot of the abilities you expect with some thrown in there that I think really make the open world free running really sing in a way that, this is kind of my Mirror's Edge catalyst in a way, where Mirror's Edge Catalyst came out and was open world free running and didn't live up to my expectations as a big Mirror's Edge fan. Sure. This game, I think, does so much of what that game failed to get, which is design the world around the free running, right? Like make it 100%. So that I can look around and see any sort of building and kind of figure out how to get there, right? And half of it feels like a puzzle, the other half just feels completely natural in terms of how I want to get up this thing.
And I think that's one of the enjoyable things about the game, Ryan. I said this multiple times talking to you guys about it, that I think it's the best parkour that's been in a video game. And you talk about it being a puzzle and, looking at it, I think most of the time, the way they've designed rooftops, I felt like it was natural. Like, even though there wasn't this is the line to take, there were enough branching ones that I would go, and I would feel like I'm doing the right thing. That is my own thing that I'm ad-libbing or improvising as I go. I was doing it without having to think. It wasn't get to a rooftop, look around. I think they've improved on it since Dying Light 1, where I remember it being a bit more stilted. Now, granted, I dropped out of Dying Light 1 a bit early just because I didn't love the world. I didn't love some of the characters and stuff like that. This one, I thought, even though it starts the same way, you're underpowered, you slowly level up, you get new stuff, things start unlocking. I thought from the jump it was fun to explore the city, and I felt powerful. Janet, how did you think the gameplay felt?
I think it was really good. I think, man, there's so many feelings attached to Dying Light 2 because I was so up and down with this game. I will say holistically, it starts a little bit basic and only gets better from there. Like the more I played, the more I started to love the game, both as I got more into it, but also I think the mechanics evolve really well. Like, I'm genuinely impressed by how much things fail to feel repetitive in this game, despite the fact that inherently it's the same stuff of you fighting and you have choices to make. That's the bread and butter of the game. But the way it continuously rolls out like these little tutorial screens, like 18 hours in, I was like, oh, you have a new thing. And I'm like, that's wild that they can keep giving me new stuff without also just like completely throwing me through a loop and making me feel like, oh my God, I'm constantly having to like relearn anything. They tell you, like, here's how you use this thing. You're using it. It's now part of your tool set and you're just going. I was
to bounce off
impressed.
that real quick too. The tutorial screens I think are some of the best tutorial screens I've had in a video game, where it is like here's basically 3 sentences that'll tell you exactly what you need to do and how to do it, and it's over. And I don't feel like I need to read through a thing. And they have pictures too, which is great.
Yeah, it's like the classic sort of like 3-up that a lot of open world games do. I think Far Cry did this quite a bit, but it just feels really like well ingrained. I think for me, it really, just fell apart in that last third, both narratively and then mechanically, and then both at the same time. I kind of feel like not only did it not stick the landing, but it also like broke its leg, and the leg won't be the same again. Like that's how the game ended for me. And frankly, I do recommend this, but it kind of pains me to recommend it because I know how bitter I was with the ending, and I'm like, I'm sad that I'm gonna make people go through that. But then me saying that now, I'm like, well, I almost don't even want to tell you that because I want people to experience it because I had so much fun. I think there was so much heart there. But I really ended in a conflicted place. But generally, I was very impressed by what they did for the most part.
I think one of the things we have to wrap our heads around with ending is that for us, rolling credits meant we're done with Dying Light 2. We can review it, move on to the next thing. Whereas I really feel like when I ended the ending, the way it ended, and like literally, I won't spoil anything, but it's like literally Poochie died on his way back to his home planet. Like that's like I want to some of the storytelling at the end of this game. I was like, what the fuck? And I made myself go play more of it. And then even today, I played a little bit before this to get into it. And then Mike and I are streaming it tomorrow and getting back into going into these side quests, running around, unlocking more inhibitors, which of course are the way you power up your character. Like I'm forgetting that hour that was really bad, but I understand that for so many of us that's and for other people too playing it will be their end thing.
Like, should you do the machete order where you go back and play more of it? Or also, hot take, most people don't finish games. If
that's
you
the other thing too.
This was a really dope game, and you got no complaints.
If I was playing this as a normal human being and not as I'm on a review and then I want to move on to the next review, I would have done the Greg Miller thing, which is I'm going to put off Golden Path. I'm going to do all the side stuff. And the side stuff, I just did, a memorial mission, which is like super early. You get really early. That I just never did. Went and did it. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This was good. Like this was good storytelling. This did make me feel a little bit more connected to these characters. Mike, you've been quiet. Where are you right now with Dying Light 2?
Dying Light 2 is a fine video game. It is a good bad and a bad good game. In my opinion, if you are a Dying Light fan like myself, of course you're going to be excited to jump back in. I think Techland really improved upon what Dying Light 1 was, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But if you are just a fan looking in, and especially looking at the month of February we have coming up, this is the perfect on-sale video game recommendation. That's what this is to me. But when I look at the goods, yes, Techland built the ultimate parkour playground. They took what Haran was in Dying Light 1, and they took it to the sky. And that's literally the truth. They took it to the sky with incredible skyscrapers, awesome vistas, great parkour lines where you get into the flow. You're in the flow state, and you just can't be stopped. You're going left, you're going right, you're jumping, you're sliding, and it just feels great. And there's also an emphasis on just a slight elevation of combat from the first one, which I really, really enjoy, right? The foundation is there, the dodge, block, the parry. But once you go back into the Duffy and you go a little bit deeper, the combat you can see is actually elevated from the first one. And there's a big emphasis on stealth this time around, right? They really encourage you to look at some of these open world missions where you're going to go in and try to find upgrade materials or maybe unlock a new area. And it's all about stealth, right? And I think they did a great job finding a balance of the flashlight, the UV light, and your Eagle Sense vision, and trying to stealth around these sleeping zombies or even the renegades, which is another big improvement, right? Dying Light 1 was really, the emphasis was zombies. This time around, it's a balance between humans and zombies. And you'll see that moment one, when you're in daytime, the zombies have gone down by about 50+%. It is barren in the streets, zombie-wise, in the daytime, but it's replaced by humans with these renegades, which make it fun and exciting. And then the nighttime, they come right back in full force with the zombies. And I loved everything about the open world. I think they did a great job adding new tasks. I think they did a fun idea with making these choices manner. Or when you take over a stronghold, you have a choice. You can choose group A or group B. And both of those are really cool to see. Of like, one is clearly take back the streets with awesome, fun gadgets and traps. The other is, hey, let's build upon this parkour playground and make it even more exciting to move around for you.
So yeah, I want to jump in there, Mike. I want you to keep going, but I want to explain that system a little bit more, right? Because I think we talk about it as if, you know, we've played multiple hours of this game. It's one of the things I wasn't expecting. Yeah, you can look at the trophy list and you can see obviously there's stuff take over windmills, which are like towers from the old Far Cries, and then take over water stations or electrical stations, right? Water towers or electrical plants. And the idea when you go into these, I think it speaks to something Janet was talking about, where she was like, it fails to feel repetitive. What I loved about both of these buildings, and I can get into the windmills and everything else too, is it never felt like the same thing. As somebody who, you know, over platinum Far Cry 6 and loved Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 I think is a lot of fun, and I love the gameplay mechanics of it. Every base, every time I went in and blew up the anti-aircraft cannons in Far Cry, like it felt like I was doing the same thing. Like I knew what was going to happen. I knew where I was going. Going into a power station, like first off, you got to figure out how to get into it. There's always a big puzzle of how do you get into these places. You get in there, and then it's multiple floors with a bunch of different locked doors, and you need to start piecing together how to get from one power station with a cable to the place it needs to plug in to then get to the other one and go. And sometimes this had me going underwater. Sometimes it had me scaling the walls and doing all, you know, the kickflip TikToks or whatever the hell they call them when you're parkouring and stuff. But I was having a great time, and I was always thinking about it, right? Same thing for the water stuff too. And once you do this, Tim, you get to the end of it, you then get to basically pledge it to either the peacekeepers, which are like the police of the area, the military, or, you know, the rebels that are the ones who are out there. And when you do it, they show it very clear, because this game is an in-your-face war video game, which I love for what they're trying to do here. They have a little thing on a little meter as you fill it in, and as you add each one of these things, it gives you a perk for the open world. And so the rebels, their stuff is all about making parkour better. So it is the fact. Thank you, Janet. Survivors. There's stuff like boxing bags on top of buildings that you could then run into and then ride them down to slam into the ground and then keep running on the ground now, stuff like that. Meanwhile, the Peacekeepers stuff is all about like being able to arm the streets, have more weapons and distractions in there for zombies and rebels and stuff like that. And it's a really cool system. Sorry, Mike, back to you.
Yeah, just to wrap up the goods, I think Techland has elevated the facial animations in the game. I will give them kudos on that. Of each one of the facial animations for the characters does look good. Right. And the biggest positive for me is they have a banging soundtrack. They have a soundtrack that nails the theme of what Dying Light is all about. Right. There's hope and majesty in some moments. There's thrill and adventure. There's despair in other moments. And they really nailed this vibe of like at all moments, whether you're parkouring around or climbing up a skyscraper, they smack you with some great music to really elevate the experience. And now on to the bad. Right. Blessing used the word. The story is serviceable. And that's my biggest gripe right there, because that is such a cop-out, right? That's that like, you know, and it's just not good enough. There's multiple times where there's characters that are super underdeveloped, right? You show up to a mission and they're like, hey, you got to meet Jeremiah over here, man. He's our dude. He's going to give you 4 lines of dialogue, and I need you to care about him because he might just be killed off tomorrow, right? And it's like, okay, well, that sucks. And that happens a lot in this game. And then on the flip side, right, there's these moments where they make you make these big time choices in the game. And you're like, okay, you want me to side with the group that just tried to murder me and spat in my face for being an outsider? Or you want me to side with the group we've never met yet? We haven't even talked to them yet. There's a great decision to choose from. And I felt like every decision was like that, where it's like, this is such a bad decision making because clearly I'm going to side with the group I've never met. This side is awful, right? And then finally the bugs, right? Which was just so sad. It's like, there's that charm of the Techland and open world charm that we all put up with, but we expect better. And that's the bugs in the gameplay, right? And there's bugs from the final boss, which I had multiple bugs with. There's story bugs where one guy's dialogue for the entire game, a character you met multiple times, his dialogue was just gone. He didn't even speak to me. It was just silence for 3 minutes, multiple times. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to connect with you, nor if we make a choice, you're going because I don't know who you are, right?
And to jump in, like yeah, like that happened to me too. I had VO drop out, and then when it would drop out, subtitles would only flash for like literally 0.5 seconds. Like I couldn't read them, and so there would be sections of the game where it would be at the end. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know it.
Yeah,
there was one where it was like a branching choice of like, cool, go to the objective, or you can go talk to Frank. Like you can go talk to Frank, and it's optional. So like obviously they're gonna give me more of a backstory, make me care about Frank. I run to Frank, and his square popped up and playing on PlayStation, and it just said, "Please wait." And it always was, please wait. And I went and, came back in, reloaded. No, couldn't do it. And then you bring up the end. I think all 4 of us had bugs that were like, okay, I got to restart this boss fight at the end of the game.
Yeah, like there was one that I sent Greg earlier today where it was me in the final boss fight just stuck in a texture and I just couldn't get out. And for that, I was later in the boss fight. And if I restarted at that point, I would lose all that progress, right? And so I kind of had to wait for myself to kind of get out of that situation and get back into the fight in order to fix it, which fucking sucks. And it reminds me, it's funny because I look at it and I compare it a little bit to Cyberpunk, where Cyberpunk, for me, in my experience with that game, was a game that had bugs throughout, especially because I was playing it pre-release before any of the patches, had bugs all throughout, but none of them were game-breaking bugs that shut down my game. Whereas with Dying Light 2, I had bugs that would pop up here and there during the main experience where I was like, oh, that's a weird thing. Like I had the thing that Greg described where for a cutscene, it was a pivotal cutscene too, all my dialogue just cut out, and yeah, my subtitles would appear for half a second and then blink out, and I'd be like, is this supposed to happen? And then I restarted, and I was like, okay, no, this is fixed. I had all that happen, but then for me, the worst thing was I got 18 hours into the game, finished a mission, tried to I put down my controller because it was the natural end of the game, restarted my game, and saw that I got stuck in an infinite death loop because the game thought I was in the previous mission, even though it registered my progress as going into the next mission. And it was an instance mission, and so I couldn't leave my boundaries. And so I just lost my save, and I had to hit up the dev, and they did a really great job of being like, hey, we're gonna patch this bug out, which I believe as of now that specific bug is patched out. They patched it out.
They emailed all reviewers about it, so it wasn't just you. It was like a thing.
Exactly,
you
like
died
multiple people
for
got
us.
It happened to me too.
For your service.
Fellow jailers, right?
And then when I was on that mission, I was like, let me not mess this up. Don't do it.
Don't
Oh
quit.
God, I was so stressed.
In again, I think Mike mentioned it in his thing of like, oh, it's Techland, and the bugs they have are like not charming, but kind of like the way we think Bethesda games are going to have bugs. I need to remind everybody, a decade ago I reviewed Dead Island at IGN, and this is Blessing when he got to that game-breaking bug. I was telling him like, this is wild because this is exactly what happened with Dead Island, except instead of Blessing, it was Damon. Where he was like, I was like, I'm reviewing this game and it's great. Despite, I really enjoy it. I think I gave it an 8 despite like the flaws or whatever. And Damon's like, I was really enjoying it until I went into a building and couldn't leave because of an invisible door. The door was open, but I couldn't get out of it. And that's the kind of stuff we're seeing here.
What's really interesting to me though is this happened to Bless. He told me, and it's like, oh, heartbreaking, stomach sinking. Like this sucks. That 18 hours is a lot of time to put in a game that overall sounds like you're not glowing about. This isn't your game of the year, right?
At the time, I was glowing about it. At the time, I was like, I fucking love this.
But at the time, you're thinking top 10.
Yeah.
You went back and you wanted to start over.
Yeah, so like I got that bug. I emailed the devs and they were like, "Hey, we have identified this. We're working on a save that you can get back to on PC that'll have that same level of progress, but it'll be a few days in the working." And in that time, I was like, "Well," and this is before we got like any other games that we're reviewing and anything, so I didn't have much else to play. And I was like, man, I was really enjoying that loop of Dying Light 2. I'm just going to start from the get-go because I know like they're not going to have my same choices in that save and my same skill tree and all that stuff. So let me just start over. And yeah, I put in an additional 7 hours into a new save. And then I jumped back into the save that they provided just because I wanted to get it done for this review. But that is how much I was enjoying my time with the game. I was willing to replay the entire game again to get to that same point and get to the ending.
So I think that's really telling that there is a quality game here, and there's a lot of fun to be had that you wanted to keep playing and you wanted to do things differently. I remember a couple years back, it must have been the same E3 that I first saw the Cyberpunk gameplay demo. I also got to see a Dying Light 2 gameplay demo. And one of the things that was the focus of the presentation was how much your choices matter. And not just for character relationships and narrative, but for kind of like the overall gameplay of the bases and kind of things that Greg and Mike were touching on a little bit. Do you think that this game fulfilled that promise, especially with them talking about how many hours, how many lines of dialogue, blah, 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 blah? Do you guys think that the choices are impactful and that what you did was different than what everyone else on the panel did?
Mike, you're nodding.
I'll jump in really quick. Yeah, it does. And you can see it clear as day because it's really cool as you evolve this world and you make these choices, right? I sided with the PK and I know Greg's on the opposite side, right? you see it in the rooftops. Everything starts to be rebuilt, and you can see that bridges that were once broken are now full again, right? Or down for me, when you side with the PK, it's all about gadgets and traps. And so when I'm on the ground, instead of fighting for my life and worrying about what I'm doing, I can set off a trap or I can jump onto a turret. And so, yeah, you could see it in the world that the world was being rebuilt. And the PKs have these massive fortresses that look like they're straight out of a cathedral drawing, right? And like, you could see it on the rooftop for me. So yeah, I thought every choice mattered. And I was jealous because if you choose with the survivors, you elevate that parkour world, but I don't know how cool it would look compared to more the PK, which is like, a better look, I guess.
For me, I think it ranges too, where I get reminded of when Greg would talk about, I think it was either Telltale Games or Life is Strange, where it is the journey in making choices in those games often is you coloring in the page and not necessarily dictating what your ending is. And I think it's a combination of that, where in the narrative, making choices I thought was really fun and really cool. And that is to a certain point. I think toward the end, the choices get kind of ridiculous and fall back into what Mike was talking about, where it's like, why would I make this choice when I would obviously make this choice? I don't know who these people are. But also like, in the places where it doesn't matter as much, like in side quests, right, where it's like, hey, this guy is poisoning the water, do you want to tell on him or do you want to side with him because he has a reason for doing so, right? And it's like, oh, I kind of like making this choice because I get to see the outcome of what this side quest that is ultimately non-consequential to the story, but it is like consequential to that moment. It is coloring in that page of that moment in the game, and I think those things do work pretty well. But then there is also that overarching what Mike is talking about in terms of, yeah, siding with the peacekeepers, siding with the survivors. I sided with the survivors because I was all in on the parkour stuff, and like I wasn't even caring about the story at that point, even though I think story-wise I'll still side with the survivors over the peacekeepers. Gameplay-wise, it mattered enough to where I was like, cool, yeah, I want all the parkour stuff in the world. I don't really care for the survival stuff because I'm just here to get to point A to point B because I think that's where the game shines. Whereas somebody like Mike, who might be enjoying the combat way more than I am, is like, no, this is where the game shines. I want to push in all the way in there. And that honestly reminds me a little bit of like earlier this week, I put out a tweet that's like, man, Breath of the Wild is really one of the most influential games of all time. I said it kind of like jokingly, but kind of seriously at the same time as I'm playing these open world games. And like Dying Light 2, I think, is kind of an example of a game that identifies what it does well and leans into that. Where it is, gameplay wise, it is the parkour and the combat. Those are the two main things you're doing, and everything gameplay wise, I think, revolves around that. Where it is choosing to side with the PKs or the survivors, that is going to increase the combat or the parkour, right? Greg mentioned finding the inhibitors and looking for those in bases in town, right? That reminds me of the shrine system, where it is find the inhibitors and then you can use those inhibitors that you find to increase either your health or your stamina. And again, that falls into those same two systems. I feel like along with the skill tree does that as well, right? Where it is two skill trees, one is for combat, one is for parkour. They know exactly how they're designing the game, and I think them really honing in on that focus of, we want to make these two things shine brightly throughout the experience and make these two things the thing that people take away from this game, really does go a long way in terms of making it such a fun game to play because they know exactly what to focus on.
I think they do a good job too, like forcing you to have balance within those two. Obviously, there are the examples of the factions where you can kind of just pick parkour or combat in that scenario. Obviously, you can also like mix them up. You don't have to only pick. You could have like this windmill's going here, this other thing's going here. So you can have a more balanced like playthrough in that sense. I always pick the survivors. I was like, ain't no world where I'm siding with the cop military. Nope, I'm good. Like, always survivors. I'm like, I don't even care what you're offering. You could offer me nothing. I'm still gonna pick the survivors. But that's just me and how I want to play it. But I think what was fun, and at first I was a little frustrated by this, but the way they do the skill tree is there's two separate XPs with the two separate lines. They're very much two separate trees instead of just being like a big map of two different like lines or branches. So you have a combat XP and parkour XP, and those feed into those skills. But then also you have the inhibitors, which you need to level up your stamina and your health. And what I think is really smart is that, well, at first it was frustrating, but then I'm like, nah, this is a good idea, is they lock some of the skills behind a certain level of health and stamina. So I did get to the point where at first I'm like, I'm going all in on stamina because I think that's going to progress me more, and the combat isn't too difficult anyway. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm locked in on my combat. I want some of these skills as I'm getting these combat points anyway. Can't use them for parkour, so I might as well build up my health. And then later on in the game, I'm like, I'm so glad that the design sort of funneled me into a more balanced skill set, because otherwise maybe I would be dying a lot more. And I'm like, I'm glad I got this health that I wasn't looking for earlier. So I think that was really good. In terms of choices, I felt like It's weird. I don't know how much replay value there really is in terms of the choices. It was fun, like, texting Greg and Bless and being like, oh, this thing happened. It's like, oh, I didn't do that at all. Like, this other scenario occurred. But ultimately, I think we're all taking different paths to the same place. It's like, okay, we're all going to the grocery store, but like, I took a bicycle there and like, maybe I saw something different and I took my car. Like, it is slightly different. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had in that, but I don't know how, like, deep it really cuts. That said, I think this would be like the most fun game to stream for an audience because I was like in it with the drama. Like, was it always sensical? No. Did I care? No. I'm like, this is Life is Strange, but you're cutting people's heads off. And I'm for it.
One of the things I want. Oh, sorry.
But before we move on, real quick, let me tell you about our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. If you've been listening to any kind of funny podcast, you know that we absolutely love using DoorDash. It's so great. It's so simple to just be able to order whatever food we want and then have it delivered right to our house, along with the restaurants you love. You can now get groceries and other essential items delivered with DoorDash. You can get some drinks, snacks, and other household items in under an hour. With over 300,000 partners, you can support your neighborhood go-tos. We always talk about Volcano Curry in San Francisco, of course. Ordering is easy, and your items will be left outside your door when you choose contactless delivery drop-off, whether it is the local favorites or the nationwide chains, like things like Popeyes, Cheesecake Factory, all of that. For a limited time, y'all can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on your first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code KindaFunny. That's 25% off up to a $10 value and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code KindaFunny. Don't forget, that's code KindaFunny for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Subject to change, terms apply. Blessing.
Well, I wanted to bounce off the choice thing for a second because I thought it was fascinating actually talking to you guys at the same time as all of us were playing, right, and figuring out, okay, how did things go for you? Because I was talking to Mike about a certain choice he made of, hey, do you want to save this character or leave this character behind? And I think it was the thing of eventually we'd get to the same place, but it was, hey, that changed how we met certain characters, right? Like me and Mike met Rosario Dawson in completely different ways, which I thought was really cool. And then there were discussions I was having with Greg in terms of, man, Greg, I'm fighting this person. How many times do I got to fight them? And Greg's like, oh, you fought them? And I was like, wait a second, like this isn't a thing.
I made
like,
the same choice.
That's cool.
I think those things are really cool. I'm sure like by the end of it, like, our stories probably ended up in the same place, though I'd be curious to have that conversation. But I think there's enough choice there to really actually justify them.
Greg, I know you have something to say, but I have a question that I want everyone to answer real quick before we get to that. Speaking of what Bless was just saying there about the end, you all clearly dislike the ending. Do you think that different choices could have been made to change that? And the other question is, do you think that the ending is going to hit for people? Or is it just you guys didn't like it?
Oh my God.
I'll start.
Greg, go ahead.
I mean,
I'm going to say the same thing Greg's going to say. I don't even know what
yeah,
Greg's
I saw
gonna say,
Janet was
and I
already
just know.
shaking her head, right? So no, I don't think the choices would change this ending. This is very much you get to the end and like the gameplay ending and where we leave Aiden and where he wraps up some of his things are going to wrap up the same way. It then gets to this thing of the game then gives you the different shades at the end, like I was talking about, of like, here's what happened to this character and this would happen to that thing. And I think there's differences there. I've already talked to the team at large about that, of what mine said very specifically, and back to a little bit of what he was talking about. In terms of will it hit for people? No, I can't imagine anybody where this would hit for it. And it's like, we did a TikTok quick version of this that everybody, read the script for already. But like what I said there, right, is like, it reminds me of one of your guilty pleasure zombie movies, 80 zombie movies, right? Where you enjoy the movie, but like it's nonsensical and you get to the end. Like that's what this ending is. And there's no choice that's going to suddenly make any of that make sense or make it go where it needs to be. And so like that's the thing I did find interesting when we finally did end this and we all did get to talk about it, was going through these, because I wrote down every choice I had in the game when it was like, do you pick this person or this person? Are you going to do this thing the guy asked? Or are you going to run and try to do this thing? And looking back at those now, back to the story serviceable, the story is forgettable. It's right there. Like I look at some of these and I'm like, I don't remember these two characters. I chose these people, but they just don't matter to me. They didn't do anything. And like, yes, it can lead to something cool. Like there's one in here that it's the one that Janet, you texted me about originally, where you're like, holy shit, wait a second, this game's getting good. It was like, that was like the standout choice I felt of like, they gave me two characters that I met at a crafting booth or whatever. And then their story evolved and changed and went where, and when it got to the end, I was like, that actually is a good one. I'm still making this choice because I'm doing that, but I do feel bad about it. But that was the one, that I felt that way about. I think, we mentioned Rosario Dawson's character. I think she's the standout to all this. I thought for sure playing this game, she doesn't get introduced for a while. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be one of those things where she shows up for like one scene and that's the thing, blah, blah. And then when they introduce her, she's there the whole ride. She's like a main character alongside you, talking to you, do it. Like you get some heartfelt moments, I thought, with her. I liked her backstory. Like I enjoyed the stuff that happened with her. And then again, they fuck it up in the end, but that's we'll have a spoiler cast at some point, I'm sure. I was thinking maybe we do PS I Love You's post show next week as the spoiler cast for this so people can pop in, but we'll figure it out.
The 4 hours that we're going to need to get unpack everything that happened.
But like the one thing I want to call out, Tim, is like you brought up that E3 demo, and I'm pretty sure it's the same demo you and I went to, right? Where you got to the water station and you were like, do you flood the city or do you not flood the city? I think we were in the same demo, right? And I was like, we're in different demos, but it was this. I was with Britt from What's Good Games, but I'm sure at the same time. Demo, and I asked her, it was an E3 story that was traded quite a bit of like, wait, so if you flood the city, do you eliminate all those quests and all that stuff? And they're like, yeah, like you'll totally change the face of the map. That shit is gone. Like the game has been, the scope has been, and this again, now I'm not trying to at all come out and say that like this is false advertising. They haven't said anything about that recently. Yada, yada, yada. Video games change scopes all the time. That's a vertical slice. That was literally 4 years ago, 15, 14 or 2016. I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, it was a while ago and they haven't done it. But I think it's important because up until I started playing this game, I was very much talking about this thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. Dying Light 1, I thought the choices seem cool if you're going to draft. And like when 500 hours of gameplay, it was like, oh man, yeah, that makes sense if you're drastically changing the map. You are not drastically changing the map. You're putting different set dressing on it, like Mike was talking about. Like it's funny to hear Mike say the towers and all this stuff because I'd been watching a preview on another YouTube channel the other night, and they were showing some stuff, and I was like, did they change that too? Did they scope that back? But that makes sense of what Mike's saying. I never saw what the Peacekeepers would have built their shit into, so it does look different that way. But again, we're talking window dressing. The main meat and potatoes of the game is the same throughout.
Can we talk about hours? Because I'm curious because there was that the whole debacle of them saying it's going to take 500 hours for you to complete this, and then they're like, well, actually, no, it'll take 80 hours for a regular playthrough plus side quests, and they're like, no, it'll take like 20 hours. I'm curious on how long it took you guys, because for me, if I do the math, because I had to switch to PC because I got the new save, I think to mainline all the way through, it probably took me around 25 hours, 26 hours, something like that.
I was like 28.
Right, money. Yeah.
I was at 27.
Yeah, PlayStation loves to fudge your numbers on your profile, and I did.
Well, there's a real
they have a
load
counter,
file,
and they
if you go to load, and also what I realized, might be
key.
what the PlayStation thing is that like I think a lot of us had to play this game offline for most of it because of embargo or whatever, and like. I think when you're offline on PlayStation, I don't think it counts your hours. Like if you, not even if you appear offline.
Someone needs to investigate why the PlayStation cannot tell the time.
Yeah,
it's like the fifth console.
Also,
right?
why the fuck? Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I've put 30 hours and 55 minutes in. So there you go.
There you go.
No bike, Mike.
I have a separate one I want to talk to the panel about here.
Oh, real quick. Before that, I just want to. I've done 30 hours in the game. That was mainly main pathing, and because like today, like when I was getting ready for this, I started going and like my quest log is just chock full of side quests going all the way back to level 1. Even though that sounds maybe crazy, I'm level 5.5 right now because the leveling system's so fucking weird in this game. But like that doesn't matter. But I have a ton of shit to do, and like back to what we're talking about earlier, like I want to do it. I am excited to stream this game for 3 hours tomorrow with Mike. I'm excited to do other stuff. When will I do it? After we do the stream? I gotta go to review season. Can you smell it outside? It's review rain. You know what I mean? I can't get away from it.
The review pollen. And I also want to mention right on top of that me saying my 27 hours isn't even counting the 7 hours I put in on that new save on PS5, which my plan was to finish this game on PC just so I can talk about it during the review and then go back to that original save and just do side quests and not worry about having to mainline. And that is something that I kind of still want to do. But it is review season, right? Like I don't know when I'm gonna actually in reality do that, but it's something that like if I didn't have all these different games, I'd be open to doing because I just like existing in the world.
And so exactly, and like again, to talk about why we're recommending this game, even though we have shit on it a lot, and we'll continue to, right? Because it is like a zombie movie, like, you know, it can be. It's
I do that constantly. Maybe they'll figure it out at this point.
For me, it's this idea, number one, of like, yeah, I'm putting it down and I'm gonna go do all the reviews and stuff, but I see myself coming back to it. And if the collectibles on the trophies seem like that something that might be a bitch, and maybe there's probably missable ones, but I don't know. I need to see what God when somebody actually commits to it. But more importantly, I think it's worth pointing out of like, remember Dying Light 1 came out in 2015, was supported through 2020 with content. So I am expecting like this game to get updates throughout.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Holy
I mean, it wasn't like consistent like monthly stuff, but it was like they added cars, they added more multiplayer, they did this thing, they blah blah blah, like they put in like a new island.
Really live in that game, like that. And that's kind of what they were talking about. Not to defend the marketing or whatever, but when they were talking about the 500 hours and stuff, I think part of that was they wanted to speak to like that hardcore community that like really lives in Dying Light. But anyway, Mike, you seemed like you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about the parkour for a second and talk about the new equipment, of course, which is the glider. And so for me, we return with the grappling hook, which I actually think is a huge downgrade from Dying Light 1. It is a different grappling hook. It is not a attach something and pull yourself into it. It is more a attach, anchor, and then swing yourself, right? And I think for Dying Light 1 fans who are coming off of that, if you've played it recently, you're going to come to this, you're going to be like, man, this grappling hook sucks. And I will say, you grow with the grappling hook, you understand that. But for my biggest disappointment, it is the glider. I think the glider is actually the weakest part of the game. It is slow, it is tough to traverse, and I think they missed the mark where it should have been a little bit tighter, a little bit faster, more agile. You're going to notice that the glider becomes more of just a last-ditch parachute pull before you fall and die. And I'm telling you, Greg Miller, this is the worst glider in game right here.
Go give the resources to it and upgrade it. What are you doing, you clown?
Thing, though, I will say, I'm curious about that with y'all, because overall I did enjoy the progression in the game and I never felt too underpowered. But I will say I felt like I didn't really have a whole lot of money / resources to do a lot with my tool set. The main thing I personally did was I'd pick my highest grade weapon / damage weapon, and then I would, if I could, because not every weapon is customizable, I would imbue it with like, oh, this has like an ice thing or a poison thing. I'd rock that till it broke, and then I'd be like, who's next? And I just keep lining them up, and I'd sell and I do think you get like a lot of inventory space and you have a stash, so that's pretty convenient. But mostly like I just picked up everything I could find everywhere all the time, which I love doing in games. And then I just sold my lowest weapons like periodically. And then I just kept picking them up and selling them. But I didn't really find, like, I looked into like the glider stuff, and maybe it's because I didn't loot enough of like the zombies, because sometimes you loot them and you get nothing, which is kind of like, well, then why am I going to loot them? But then sometimes you get a rare coin that you can use later. So I personally didn't end up upgrading my glider or making many upgrades, other than I think I upgraded the lockpick, and that was kind of it. But I'm curious as to like, what was that progression like for y'all, and did you enjoy the cadence that came at?
I'll jump in. I was surprised there wasn't more upgrading and more repairing of your weapons. I was the same way of like, oh, I love this machete, I've done these cool things to it. And then when I was like, oh, I guess I can't. Okay. Like I got over it and moved on. And like the weapons I feel like are plentiful. Like I honestly never sold any. I dropped a bunch because I would just let it fill up and I would go through and kill stuff. And then I would
wasting money. You're leaving money on the table.
I know. Well, again,
so you're going to come to me for my PS Plus redemptions, but you're just dropping weapons on the ground. It's the end of the world.
Well, you're not going to run back to the base in the middle of a mission.
I thought it was like a level 1 gray or green.
You can swap. Y'all act like swapping. It's not a possibility. You can swap to a higher.
But then I did upgrade stuff at the Craftmaster, but again, it was the same thing of like, that's actually, I felt kind of buried. Like they didn't make a big deal about it. So like I did it, but like, while we're talking, I had one upgrade left in the paraglider. So I went and looked at it. And it's like, oh, well, I still need to go get military tech. So it's like, I have the money for it. I have a lot of money actually, but like, I don't have the tech for it.
Really?
So, but again,
broke. Where'd you get all this money from?
I lose everybody.
One of the trophies is having like $1 million. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to ever platinum this game. Like, where am I getting out? What am I like starting a business? Like what's going on? Where is this income coming from?
You could have asked me if this game had currency and I'd be like, I don't know. I don't think I bought one thing in this game.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Like, I feel like I want to hear from more of y'all's experience with that. But
see, talking about the weapons, I think is interesting because I had the same thing where I was just going through weapons like crazy. Like it reminded me of Breath of the Wild, where it's like, cool. Like I'm breaking weapons, but I don't care because I got the next one. The one thing that I was bummed about in terms of not being able to repair weapons was the fact that you would find some weapons that would have slots in them, so you can add in like a bolt ability or a fire ability, and that would literally give you basically magic powers where you can shoot fire out of your wrench, or you would like be able to hit somebody and like have electrify them and shit like that. And that stuff I thought was cool, and I wish there was more of that. And maybe it is the fact that like, maybe if you do way more of the side quests, maybe you start unlocking even more of that stuff. But for how I played, which I feel like was a very normal way to play, aside from losing my save and getting a fake save, like I took my time in the way that I like to take time with games, and did probably like 70 to 80% mainlining, and I didn't find anything that was over the top. Like, oh shit, here we go. Here's a big wrench that has like. Turns people into zombies or something crazy like that, right?
Yeah,
like I was looking forward to something. Over the top.
Again, Dying Light 1 didn't hit for me originally, and I think it's both the time, the setting of the game, a few different things, right? But I was a big Dead Island fan. I reviewed both Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide, and so I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna start crafting crazy weapons here. Like I'm gonna get to that point, and that never happened. Yeah, I put electricity mods on I unlocked or got the blueprint for electricity mods for the main part, the middle part, and so once I had those, I didn't bother investing in any other ones, right? I just ran those on whenever I needed to, because I don't like weapons are breaking slowly, but I wasn't using crazy weapons and doing stuff that way. But then also I felt like there's so much stuff of like, all right, cool, here's a fire resistance booster, and here's this thing, and blah blah, and like none of that was ever important. You know what I mean? Like, and also same thing where it's like you can put these different mods on your weapons, the electricity, the whatever, and that's cool. And I enjoy it the same way of like, whatever it is, my critical hit then arcs electricity to everybody else that's there. That's neat. But I was expecting that to build to, all right, cool, you're going up against an enemy that is going to be only weak to poison. So I really need a poison weapon here, and blah, blah, blah. And maybe like, for better or worse, that could go either way, right? Of being annoying if I never had that stuff to get there, or also what it was of just like, cool, I'm just hacking everything to death or hitting everything, which is a Techland game. Again, this is the fourth one like that's like this, so we can't be like, well, what the fuck are they doing? Like, they know what they are, and we all keep buying the game and liking the game.
Snowbike Mike, what's something we haven't talked about yet that you want to talk about this game?
Ooh.
You know what? Everything has been talked about that is on my big to-do list. I will just bring up one final thing about bugs, and it has to do with parkour. And the parkour is so pivotal in this game, and it's the best part about this game. But the moment that the bugs start to kick in and the parkour doesn't feel right, that's the most frustrating the game will get, right? And there's these really interesting windmill puzzles where you're climbing up the side of this, right? And now you have to trapeze artists and get momentum to swing onto the other thing. And the moment that the bugs affect the parkour, now you jump sideways, you jump backwards, you never jump to where you actually want to go. And I found that to be the most frustrating part of the best part of the game, right? And that was a really big downfall for me. But we've touched on everything that I wanted to touch on.
I want to go around before we end the Dying Light 2 section of the game, moving on to Pokemon. I want to go around to everyone. What's your favorite thing about this game? And if someone else says it, you can say it too. That's okay. But I just want to know what's your favorite thing about the game. Because listening to you all talk about this, like clearly you enjoy this game a lot. There's just a lot of really big problems with it. Who wants to start?
My thing is, I wonder too how big of a problem it is. Like again, and I'm not trying at all give it a get out of jail free card. Everything we said is 100% true here. I didn't have my bugs were pretty much limited just to the final fucking hour,
Same.
which was annoying as shit, but are better than most Techland games. Like, so I don't mean to make such a mountain out of a molehill of that. It was just that final hour really drives home, hey, we can't tell a story. Hey, we don't know how to end this thing. Hey, our performances aren't that great. Hey, I don't like fighting the humans, and for my ending, it was like, cool, fuck, slow him down. He's got to kill all these guys to advance in this room. All right, you go in another room, kill all these guys. Oh, fucking Jesus. All right, you know what I mean? It was running around clacking. It was that classic video game shit of like, man, it's 10:45, 11. I probably got 30 more minutes to cut to 12:30, and I'm like, end. Why am I fighting this monster, man? That sucks. He's getting trapped in the wall.
Yes.
I think Tim said a good thing.
So what was your favorite thing? Like,
a favorite
I
thing?
don't know.
No. I'm saying I know. I wasn't even getting into my good thing. I was saying, remember, Tim was like, it sounds like you really enjoy it, but it has some major problems. And I'm like, does it have major problems, or do we all have the same problem that really just magnifies what the problem is?
And I go back to the thing of like, this is a game that I love that hates me. Where like it's just the fact that like we love it so much that we're just disappointed when it doesn't work, because it's a game that when
Not
it works,
mad, I'm
it works so well, right? We're not mad, we're just a little disappointed at like a lot of the things in the game. And Janice a little mad. But I think for me, the thing that I'd say is my favorite thing about the game is honestly like the open world structure. I think it nails what it's trying to do in terms of being that middle point between a Fallout style open world RPG, but then also being an action game that functions as an action game, and you are parkouring in a world that is built for parkouring, and you are getting into the action bits, and it does feel good when it works. Like, I honestly think this game is really impressive, and like in the cutscene moments, even right where it is you going through the dialogue trees, making the choices, the way that characters emote, the way that the game looks, I think is beautiful. I think they nail so much about the formula of the game and creating a game that I think sticks its landing in so much of the gameplay. And I think the thing that comes back to like the man, we're not mad, just disappointed, is the fact that I think we can see so much more for this game. Like this game, this game would have been in my top 10. A week ago when I was talking to Greg and I was talking to other people, right, when we were talking about this game, I was like, dude, I think this game might be in my top 10 games. But then I get to the landing. Yeah, and you get to the last few hours of the game, and I'm like, all right, maybe not, because I lost my save, because I had all these bugs, because I hated the final boss fight, because I hated where the story went, right? Like, so much of it, if it worked, would have put it in top 10 territory. But it's still that same stuff where I'm like, no, I recommend this. Like, people should play this. And so I think that's my favorite thing about the game is all the things that it does nail. And I think so many people are going to enjoy so much those things that it does nail.
Janet?
Yeah, I think too, I actually think I like the story more than anyone else here. And so I'm going to say my favorite thing is the drama. I love the drama of it. And I think, Snowbike Mike nailed it, where there are times where they force you too often, I think, into instinct versus info, where it's like, who has like the right vibe? And so now I'm like, why don't they know enough to have an informed decision? And of course, one can argue that like, that happens in life, but I think in game that can become frustrating if you do that too often, and I do think they do it a little too often. That being said, I was here for it. Like, I was glued to the screen playing this game. I was like eating up the drama, where at any second they're like, no, I didn't kill this person. How do I know you're the, like suddenly the gun's turned on me. I'm like, maybe I'm the bad one. Maybe the person I'm working for is double crossing me. I'm rolling with this guy. Just kidding. He's dead. Now who's whatever. I want him more. It's too late. We got to keep going. Like, I loved the drama of this game. Again, I want to repeat that if you like streaming stuff and you see the gameplay and you're interested in this, it would be such a fun ride to do a full let's play of this, because I was entertained at my own reactions playing this alone in my apartment. I'm just like, oh my God, like texting people. I was loving it.
I sent you guys a video. Like, when I was playing, there was a certain scene that I got to, and because I'm playing on PlayStation, my mic just automatically records me. And so I saw one scene, and the scene was honestly my turning point with this game story, where I went from being like, oh, this is serviceable, to where I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is fucking great. And like during that scene, I was like speaking verbally. I was like, oh shit. Oh no, they didn't. Oh, I can't believe it. And like, all that stuff got recorded, and so I went back and watched the clip again, and I like heard myself, and I was like, this is funny. I'm sending this to Janet and Greg, and both of them were like, this is amazing.
There are so many fun surprises in it, and I think, again, I honestly think the story is more than serviceable. I think it's surprisingly good. It just started off a little too melodramatic because you're not used to the world, and you're like, I don't know, one person's like, it's the end of my life, here, take this and run, and then meanwhile I'm like, I hit someone, they fly 80 feet, like, where are we at here? It feels a little bit, but it works. I'm working through my written review now to post up tomorrow over on my site Petapixels, and I describe it as chocolate cake and a lager beer, where that sounds kind of nasty together, like it wouldn't work, but it totally does because it cuts the right way. And that's my favorite thing about Dying Light 2. I think the parkour is great. I think the melee starts basic but does evolve. There's a lot of good things about this game, but what I personally really loved about it was the drama, and maybe the decisions didn't lead me to a totally different crazy ending experience. I still hated the end, but I had fun in the drama of it. I even paused the game during all those decisions. I cheesed my way through this. They had a timer. I'm like, not for me. Hit pause. Okay, what do I know? What don't I know? Who can I trust? Who do I not want to? What I really love that aspect of it.
That's
and
awesome.
Definitely is my favorite part.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Mike, what was your favorite thing?
Parkour playground, combat and stealth, and of course the open world. They really added a lot of things to do and keep you active even after the game or before you wrap up the game. So there's a lot of fun things to do. The elevation of the puzzles have been great. And the one thing that we haven't been able to talk about because we didn't get a chance to do it is co-op, right? You hear all of our excitement in the gameplay. I can't wait to get with Greg, Blessing, and Janet, or 3 more of my friends, and just who can do the best line, who can find the nastiest, gnarliest jump off point, because co-op will be fun with 3 friends. So that is my favorite parts of the game.
So now, before we get to
hold on, I'd
Pokemon,
say my favorite part because I was just telling you the one thing I just want to say is
your chance complaining about it.
Well, I wasn't complaining.
I
was making a point. For me, it's the fact that I'm still going to keep playing after this, and I still want to go and get every windmill. I still want to go and get every facility. Like I want to pop those trophies. I still like existing in this world, and I still want to run through and make the city better, if that makes sense. I still want to do that, and I think it's a great whatever you want it to be. Like, you know, after we had beaten it and I was getting ready for the review, you know, I sat there and I put on This American Life, and I just went around and did windmills. And like those windmills, I think, are so great in terms of, you know, I didn't have the bugs Mike was having, so for me it was just, how do I get up there? Okay, like you sometimes they're super simple. Other times it would be 5-10 minutes of me failing and falling and trying to figure out what exactly it wants me to do. When you have to time the jumps, you have to time when you're getting on the platforms to make the jumps. I thought that was great, and I think that's really enjoyable.
Did you ever do the like supermarkets or like the dark hollows, or whatever they're called, like the places that you would find the inhibitors that they would say to go to?
So like the ones that are like 4 rooms or 4 levels or whatever.
Resources.
Yeah, they're basically like what I equate to like the Zelda shrines of like, hey, come back here during the nighttime. Where
I did that.
A bunch of those.
How are those? Because I didn't actually do as much of those.
I never went into those.
Yeah, I just didn't like going around at nighttime, so I was like, oh, maybe I won't do as much of this. Mike, let me know. How'd you like those?
Those are the ones that capture the excitement and the adrenaline and the scared nature from the first one, right? I think the nighttime in this one is not as scary,
100%.
right? Because of the big world, but they capture it in these dark hollows, right? That's when you're at the edge of your seat, your heart is pounding, you're using the eagle sense, you're flashing your flashlight on occasionally. This is where they found that magic they had in the first one, and that's in the dark hollows.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm right there with Mike. Same thing with like taking down subways, right? Where it would be, all right, the door's right over there, but I know it's going to be locked. So how do I get around these zombies without waking them up? Or if it's humans, how do I take them all out and get over there and do it? But yeah, some of those inhibitor like GRE facilities, like I was like, oh, I'll do one of these, and I went in there. I'm like, oh, it's a little bit higher level, no big deal. And then because you can get 4 at one go, the inhibitors, the upgrades, and I was like, cool. And I started doing it, and I was like, oh, like this is like 4 different floors. Like I need, and when I finally got to the very bottom, it had a bunch of like super zombies that just killed me. And I was like, you know what? I will come back when I'm leveled up, but I understand what I'm getting into, and I appreciate again the different scope of it, right? Of like, all right, you can go to some that are just inhibitors you break in. There's a tiny little safe that you have to find the code in the room and open, and it takes you 4 seconds. Or it's these ones that can be giant ones.
When you say subway, when you explored the subway, would that unlock fast travel for you?
Yes,
correct.
So like I played most of this game without fast travel, and like it's funny because I almost brought this up during PSW a week ago, but I didn't know if this is like embargo or if I can say this or not, and I was like, certainly this can't be true, because like I played it and I was like, why is there no fast travel? I am running from place to place, which I didn't mind because it's literally like that's what the game is for, it's parkour. But like it wasn't until I got the save that Techland provided for me where I opened up the map and I was like, oh, what are these green things? And I was like, wait, you can fast travel in this game? I had no idea.
Yeah, I think, you know, for like last thoughts, that is one thing I lightly want to touch on, because I think what works well is because the parkour is so fun, and like I didn't have beef with the glider, but also I love something to be desired, so I think Mike brought some good points.
Thank you, Dan.
You know, like it was a little bit
air
slow.
drafts to shoot you up.
I know, but like the way I spun, the way I would like sometimes just spin into
it took me a minute to figure out exactly how to activate it. Because I'll jump and then I'd click it and it wouldn't come out. Like, fuck.
Exactly. You know, you get the swing of things. I did use
this is Mike's footage right here, right?
Quick tip of everybody.
Pull back on the stick, Mike. Bring your feet up. You can go further.
Quick tip: reset the controls. Go anti-inverted or non-inverted, whatever it is, and you will have a better time with the glider. I promise you. You change the controls.
But with the fast travel, I kind of give it a little bit of a pass because I think the traversal is so fun that I'm like, it's fine. But I only unlocked like 1 or 2 of the stations, and I just feel like making me work that much for fast travel when the fast travel also like isn't that wavy. Like there's a couple stations spread fairly far apart. Like the only one that I really cared about was the one by like one of the bars where I'm like, oh, I'm always going there. So like, let's make sure we have this one. Yeah, and then the fact that you also have to do it, you basically have to do it at night because that's when the interior buildings are like less occupied. I'm like, you're making me do a lot for something that I feel like I should be able to just do. But I like exploring enough that I didn't mind. Like I just didn't do that many of them for that that reason.
That was my beef with it, and that's kind of why I didn't do as much as like Greg and Mike, because it was the thing of, cool, the inhibitors will give me more health and stamina, and then if I do like the subway, then I guess I get more fast travel. But there was no point in the game where I felt like that was as necessary to my experience. I felt like I had enough of the health and stamina stuff, and I just didn't feel like there were like only a few times where I was like, I really need fast travel. Otherwise, I was fine running around everywhere, because running around everywhere is fun.
So now, officially, before we move on to Pokemon, I want to go around and everyone give their thoughts on the official Kind of Funny ratings of where this game lands.
And what are the official Kind of Funny?
We have a 4-scale rating. Blessing, do you want to run us through those ratings?
Oh man, sure, I do, because I remember them. It is 4 ratings, right? It is based on recommendation. At the bottom is don't bother. Above that is worth checking out or worth trying out. Above that is recommended, and then above that is game of the year contender.
Yes, exactly.
I think third is like a way for, isn't it like something with a sale or something, like check out it when it's on sale or something?
No, I think that's like screencast. I think they do that for movies.
Yeah, 3 is recommended.
Okay.
We're working through the scales, everybody, but like
the scale's right there. Don't bother. Worth trying out. Recommended game of the year contender.
Who's first?
Oh, okay. Like, what's happening?
I'll start first because I'm probably the lowest. I'm going to put this at a number 2. This is worth checking out if you're a Dying Light fan. Yes, you're going to want to jump in. If you are looking at February or you're just apprehensive on this is a for sale game. Go find it on sale, in my opinion. So worth checking out if this is the kind of game that you want.
It pains me to say that I do recommend this game, only because, again, it really falls apart at the end. Like, I cannot understate how badly this ending is. I literally, and I'm not exaggerating, people can attest to this who are in my apartment, I was crying, laughing at the ending of this game, which, to the point, again, with the stream vibes, I'm like, I was entertained in a way, like this was, but yes, it was really, really an awful ending, but I still recommend it because I think the highs were really incredible, and I think my overall experience is still positive, so I feel like it is my moral obligation to still recommend this as much as the ending did crush my spirit.
It's funny. I when I was beating the game today, in the middle of the final boss fight, I messaged Greg, and I think Janet too. I was like, I might rage quit this, and that is after doing so much work to get to that place of like reaching out to Techland, getting the new save, spending yesterday and this morning, catching up to where to get to the ending. I was like, I might not finish this because I do not like this. But I am with Janet there, where I don't know if I'll say it pains me, but I do recommend this game because I think there's so much fun to be had, and I think like. It's hard for me to imagine anybody hating this game, anybody not having a good time. I think it is a very solidly good game that is worth going into. I think it's a great open world game that just has some rough edges that like we can all get past together. But yeah, I definitely recommend this game.
Yeah, and I'm a recommend as well. Like, I think for all the things you just said, I think again we're all so hot coming off the ending. But I can't look past, again, 30 hours now in the thing. I want to put in more. I'm excited to put in more. If the last couple collectible trophies aren't bad, I can see me platinuming this later this year to come back. Because, again, there's a lot to do, but chipping away at it, getting in there with, I'm sure, other stuff they'll add. Even without that, just as it is right now as a game, I recommend it. A lot of fun to be had in Dying Light 2.
So now we move on to Pokemon Legends Arceus. I want to know, what are our thoughts after one weekend playing the game? This is impressions, it's not review. To be clear, Kind of Funny did not get a review code for this game, so we're all on equal playing field while playing through a bunch of different games. Janet, oh my God, I think I have to start with you because you chose the one true starter, Cyndaquil. Let's go. I love that so damn much. I love it so much that my first girlfriend I ever had made me a custom Cyndaquil plush. Like,
wow,
she was learning how to sew.
Oh, that's
and she had the date that we met on our
that's
on
so
it,
beautiful.
a little heart on the Cyndaquil.
Meanwhile, I'm like, my single ass just bought this at the time. No, I'm not single anymore. But anyway, I myself, like at a convention, like, let me buy this little 3D perler of Cyndaquil. But yes, that is my starter. I have a little 3D perler of Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil is adorable and becomes badass, which is one of my favorite evolutionary arcs. No spoilers if
glow up.
He looks different. I don't know what he's going to look like now. But anyway, I'm really enjoying my time with Arceus. I'm only about 6 hours in. So I did, I don't think it's spoilers to say, like the first boss thing, right? Like the first big thing you do. I did that, and I did a little bit of the side stuff. But just off the bat, I like how different it feels. It did take me a second to figure out, like, do I like this more? Is it weird that now the Pokedex is see this one move and do this other thing? Like, it's a lot more questy. But I also like that it's a lot more, despite the slow start, a lot more open out the gate. Like, I like that once I got over all the tutorials and we, got the game really going about an hour or two in, I'm like, all right, forget what everyone else needs in town. I'm getting my hair cut. I'm going shopping. How much money did you give me? I'm spending all of it. Now I'm realizing why I didn't have money in Dying Light 2, but I digress. I really like getting to do some of that stuff really early on. And I think my favorite thing so far of the game has been just being surprised by walking around and seeing a Pokemon that I wasn't expecting to see just out in the open, seeing things that were way over leveled, seeing things and not having an answer for right away, or doing things that are familiar in a new way. Like the fact you can throw Pokemon to gather resources for you. Like, I think the combination of stuff I have never really seen before in a Pokemon game and things I'm familiar with having a fun twist is making for a pretty delightful experience, I think, in those opening hours.
Yeah, I want to jump off of that actually, because I come from a similar but different place where I am now also about 6 hours in. I think I might be in the same place you are currently, facing the first boss character. But I think that Pokemon is something that I love so near and dear to my heart. But I do think that it is that Star Wars kind of syndrome that we've seen over the decades of toxic fandom. And I think that I just kind of need to admit that I might be part of the problem when it comes to it all.
Wow.
Where I'm playing this and there's so much that I enjoy, but for everything that I enjoy, there is something that I'm like, yeah, but, and I'm like realizing it's the trees. But mainly for me, it's like, okay, I've spent 20 years of my life complaining that we just did the same gyms over and over and over again. And here I am like, yeah, but I liked the battles though, and I liked the gyms. Like, where are they? So I'm still kind of stuck where Legends to me so far is such a step in the right direction. And I think in the same way of Dying Light, where I have more negative things to say than positive, I'm at the end of the day happy the direction we're going, because I want to see what the next Pokemon Legends looks like, and what the 5th Pokemon Legends looks like, and what the next Pokemon game after Sword and Shield looks like, because they're getting the ideas right. But I also want to see them meld them with the ideas that I actually loved. A lot of people have been saying this is the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon, myself included. And I definitely don't think it's that. I also think that it is some steps in a lot of directions. And I think that at the end of the day, every step they took was towards a positive. So that's a good thing. Like, we are moving in a good direction. I just think that we get stuck as Nintendo fans and as Pokemon fans even more so in this rut where we want to see the best in things and we want to see the changes as they happen, because most of the changes over the last 2 decades have been incremental and also not substantial, because by the next generation they're taken away. And that's always been this kind of give and take thing. I do feel like Game Freak understands what they have here and are truly trying to evolve the whole situation with Pokemon and make something a little different. I just don't love that what their different take is just a lesser than version of other games. Because like, it kind of just feels like, oh, I've heard Greg and Kevin talk about Monster Hunter World for the last couple of years of how into that they were. And that seems a step above what we're getting here. And we're all stoked about this as Pokemon fans because it feels fresh and different. But it's still just kind of like the basic kids' first RPG version of it. And I know a lot of people are going to hate what I'm saying here, and that's totally cool. I started to saying I'm probably not the audience for this anymore. And it pains me to say that because Cyndaquil is my fucking favorite starter and he got another chance. And I'm not having a great time with this. I'm like enjoying elements of it, but the things like the graphics are bringing me down more than I wish they would. And that sucks because I remember growing up being like, graphics aren't everything. Oh, they shouldn't make or break a game. But look at this.
Childhood, you say. Look at you now.
Look at what we're looking at here. Like, it's just kind of like upsetting to me. And this This game is so personally hitting me in a way where I'm like, man, you're taking the biggest steps forward by making me care as less as I possibly can. I don't love the Sinnoh region. So cool. Let's go back in time and go there. I don't know if I want that. If it was Kanto, if it was Johto, would I have a different opinion? Maybe. What does that say about me? So this is less a review about Pokemon Legends and more a review of Tim Geddes as a 32-year-old man.
Deep.
Look at this introspection.
I'm going to tell you right now.
Like a Jeff Gerstmann review right here.
I don't recommend.
Wow.
Holy shit. You're saying on the kind of funny scale.
I'm
This
saying
is like some
Tim
dark
Geddes.
shit.
Tim Geddes, I don't recommend.
He says, number
Pokemon
one,
Legends?
don't bother. Don't bother, he says.
But if I'm being honest, and I'm only a couple hours in, so it's like a lot could change. I don't think it's going to based on how they presented this game. I still early on would put it pretty low. Like, I don't think that this is the game changer that Pokemon needed, at least for me. And I know there are a lot more important people out there than me, but this isn't what I was looking for.
They're not on this call, so it doesn't matter. Fuck them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They had their
Mike-
chance. No,
Go, Janet, go for it.
Go,
Oh, I
Jay.
just
Go
wanted to
deep,
add-
Janet.
I just want to ask really quick to you, Tim. Is there like what's like the last Pokemon game that you really think knocked it out of the park? And to the point of not having gyms, how did you feel about Sun and Moon if you played that? Because I think there is always that debate of like, I want it to be different, and then it's like, oh, but like also the same somehow. Like, well, you know, like where are you at with that?
So Sun and Moon was actually a breath of fresh air for me. And I think
It was
that
the dancing, wasn't it?
no, not the
And
dancing.
the surfing Pikachu. It's okay, and you can just be honest.
No, Surfing Pikachu, I'm down for. But it's like,
Hell yeah.
I've never been a fan of the gimmicky stuff, the beauty contests and the like all that shit. Every generation has some version of that. I've never been a fan. Like dating back to Ruby and Sapphire, like I didn't like that stuff. I like the core gameplay, and I've always been a fan of Red, Blue, Gold, Silver because I was 8 years old when they came out. But also just that they were direct sequels to each other and they built on each other and the lore. And Koga, who was the gym leader in Fuchsia City in Red and Blue, became an Elite Four member in Gold and Silver. I loved that type of storytelling. Then it kind of felt like after that, they got derivative of just there's a new team, your rival doesn't even dislike you anymore. Now they kind of are your biggest cheerleader, and that's weird. Like all that stuff I just didn't vibe with. And again, I grew out of it. Like they're reinventing it for people in a way that I always appreciate because I grew up watching the cartoon, so that reinforced Cerulean City meaning more to me than it did in the game. I'm not watching the cartoon now for whatever Sinnoh region that they're talking about, or not now, but then, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of shit there that I just am not vibing with, but I think that the last Pokemon game that I really, really, really thought did something cool was what you just said in Sun and Moon. I liked that they got away from the gym thing and did something different with the trials. I don't think they nailed it all the way through, but like, I like that it took the same idea, but did it a little different. It was kind of the Orange Islands version of Pokemon.
Like from the show, or
yeah.
Okay.
But adapting that to a game. And sure, it was 15 years later, but they did it.
Yeah, Sun and Moon
cool.
is one of the ones I haven't played. So like I played Pokemon up until
Ooh, you should. Well,
Ruby.
The 3DS don't look that great anymore.
That's the thing is,
but
that's
it's
why
really good.
That's why I never went to it, because I never had a DS or a 3DS, and so like I played up until Gen 3 and then bounced out, and I came back with the Switch and on all the Pokemon games for the Switch. And so like hearing Tim talk about it strikes fear in my heart, because I've only played about like an hour of Pokemon Legends Arceus, and that is over the course of however many days it's been out, because we've been playing all these different games. And so I try to get back into it, but somehow I've just been in the tutorial for the last however many days, because the tutorial seems to go on forever and I just can't get out of it somehow. But I mean, I think as a Pokemon fan, I think I'll put myself in the same place as Tim in terms of expectations and my lineage with the franchise, where I am like, when I look back at my best memories of Pokemon, I think it is me being a kid, and it is me playing Red and Blue and Gold and Silver, and then watching the anime, and then playing Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2, and being surrounded by all this stuff where I think back to Pokemon and I think about, Cerulean City, and I think to like Sabrina as a gym battle, and I'm like, oh, did I appreciate that because the game or because the anime made that dope as hell, right? But I think it was the this Pokemon culture that really elevated that IP for me in a way where I haven't I haven't fallen in love with a Pokemon game, I think, since maybe I was young, right? Like Pokemon Sword, I liked fine, but I complained all throughout it. Pokemon Let's Go, I liked as a way to revisit something that I liked as a kid. And then Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I think both me and Tim were like, oh, this is boring. And that was my first time with that gen. And I was like, yeah, no, this is just Pokemon. Like, this is the same Pokemon game I've played a billion times now, but just with a different coat of paint, and I'm not into this. And I've been looking forward to Legends Arceus as being the thing that'll buck the trend and make me fall in love and give me that experience that, like, I've been looking for out of Pokemon forever, right, since a kid. But now, like, hearing Tim right now, and also having that put in that first hour where my first impression was, oh, this is ugly, because I booted up on my TV and I was like, I've not seen a game that looks this ugly in a long time. Granted, that was on my TV. I switched my OLED Switch and I was like, okay, this looks better.
Yeah, that's a good point though.
Yeah,
the OLED Switch handheld,
yes,
it is a different experience.
That is the only way to play.
Yeah, don't play that game on your monitor or on your TV, because I was astonished. And
it's not flawless. It's not flawless handheld though. There were still frame rate dips. There was still a lot of tech issues that I'm like, how? What are we fucking doing here?
I will say though, visually, like, is this the same, better, or worse looking than Sword and Shield? Because, like, and I don't know if you just also hated how Sword and Shield looks. I'm not gonna be here and say that like Pokemon has ever really looked that good. But also, like, and there are really good looking Nintendo games, right? Dread looks great. Got no beef with Dread. Looks awesome. Mario Odyssey, very good. However, just generally speaking, when I play games that are not on my Switch, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot games actually look good now. Like, you know, and you could argue it's part of that is art, part of that is the art direction they have with it. But I'm just curious as to like where that lands for you in terms of Sword and Shield. Because personally, I look at Arceus and I'm like, it don't look amazing, but like this looks like what I thought it looked like based on.
I think Sword and Shield, at least visually, maybe not like graphically, was any better, but I think it like stylistically and visually is much more interesting.
I think the
I don't know if I agree with that.
Isn't the art like the same? Like, what is the? Maybe it is different. It looks kind of the art
like
style looks the same to me.
And shit. Like it just like I think when you go into this open world kind of areas and stuff, right? It's just. It feels so bare bones, and at least like in, I don't know. There's just something I think stylistically, just with like the locales and stuff like that, that they at least, you know, got a little creative with. Where because they wanted this to be quote unquote Breath of the Wild, it feels just like Breath of the Wild again, but way less interesting to look at.
And I think that's the problem: is that Breath of the Wild is, when you compare it to Horizon, not as like the resolution's not there, and the image quality and all that.
Like
none of that's there.
Character models have taggies, like all that stuff.
The art style's there to back it up, and there's something. Whereas this kind of like is Horizon is to Breath of the Wild what Breath of the Wild is to Pokemon Legends. You know, like it just kind of goes down to down. And like I think that is where the biggest problem lies, is that Barrett showing the Sword and Shield now.
I do see kind of the different vibe.
This is exactly like the presentation, I think, just because it was a more basic Pokemon game. Like, I think this is visually much more interesting than Arceus.
It's glossier.
Yeah.
And it's
the defined lines, because they went for the water painting look, watercolor painting look with Legends, and looking at Sword and Shield, they went with the more like traditional Pokemon, hard black lines on everything. And either way, they don't look great, but like we don't expect a Pokemon game to look great. But Mike, I want to hear what you have to say. You played a couple hours of this.
I played 3 hours of it, Tim, and it is nice to rejoin the Pokemon world. It's always cool to jump into it. I'm disappointed in the starters, besides your favorite one, Tim. I did choose that one. I am disappointed that we continue to get like mopey, sad water type Pokemon. Really, it's fallen off since Squirtle. Just gonna throw it out there, everybody.
No,
but
don't disrespect it. Don't disrespect Totodile, okay?
But, I mean, it's just falling off.
Respect on Totodile's name.
But after that,
is he not just an alligator?
Yeah,
alligators are cool.
It's a long tutorial. It's a difficult tutorial, and it's one of those. Tim, I'm like you, right? You have to realize who you are and where you are in your life. It's not built for me. It's built for, you know, baby BJ's first Pokemon game, right? He's got to learn how to play it. He's got to understand it. I wish that I could just skip that and jump right into it. But it is cool to see it. I have the complaints like everybody else. The world feels very empty. It does not look good, and it doesn't encourage me to jump back on my Switch at all. But it is a really cool take on a Pokemon game that makes me smile a little bit.
Now, this might be me setting up something that puts egg in my face, but Greg Miller.
Yeah, buddy.
I think you're higher on this game.
I'm having a great time. I'm super early. It's one of those where I had heard all the takes, good and bad. I already, Jen had started it before me. She's a huge Pokemon fan and texted Tim, so I had inside knowledge on Tim's opinions based on my wife. But my plan was to keep it set to the side until DICE, when I'd be on a plane and I'm going to sequester in my room in between rehearsals and actually doing the DICE Awards rather than go out and catch COVID in Vegas. And so this weekend came around and Benjamin was down for a nap, and I knew it wasn't going to be enough time to get into any, of the other games I'm playing and reviewing. So I was like, you know what? Let's start it up. And started it up while there was something else on TV. It came back to it throughout the day. I'm still super early. I'm probably maybe 2.5 hours in. It's upstairs somewhere but I like it. I'm not a Pokemon fan. I've played Pokemon before. Most recently Sword and Shield. I had played and beaten, and I had done some of Let's Go and not been super high on it. But I have there's no sacred cow for me, right? There's no golden goose that I look at and I'm like, oh, this is my Pokemon. I started it up and I told you already. I had seen the photos and I was like, I'm going to roll with this iguana with the fire back. He seems cool. That's going to be my dude. But then I started it up and what did I see? Rowlet. You kidding me right now? You got Blathers? We got a baby Blathers over here. You're my boy. Let's go. And so we're out there and he's doing the leaflet shit. And I'm like, yeah, fuck this thing up. But I enjoy the the exploring of it. Obviously, I enjoy using the Pokemon to get items out of the tree. I think that's a cool idea. I enjoy having to approach the Pokemon different ways. Stay stealthy, go over and get them. These fucking Bidoofs. And then I do appreciate what is a Greg Miller game these days, right? Usually it's some terrible Marvel game, or it's going to be the fact that it's a checklist game. And so to go into the Pokedex and be like, cool, you know what? I'm just going to catch 5 of these guys right now and move that up. Then I'll go back to battling them, going in battling. Like even though I played Sword and Shield recently, and I played the one I always get confused about from way back in the day with the pedometer at IGN, and I played, here, there.
Gold and Soul Silver, literally one of my top 3 games of all time, Greg.
They're all the fucking same. I'm going to remember way more about this game than those fucking ones. All right, here's your lunch. Go fucking be a Pokemaster. Great. I had to Google. I'm like, when did fucking Pokemon Sword and Shield come out? I'm like, 2019. Yeah, that's the one we played in France. That's the one I played in France. And I played that entire fucking thing on a plane ride. And all it is just fucking going and throwing balls at people. And I got to talk to people in the gym and whatnot. Like, whatever. Here, I'm with Janet. I get to change my hair. Taylor Swift fell out of the time portal. I'm excited to know how am I getting back to my time. They're not even caring about it. They're not. Taylor Swift's not even mad about it.
The France
and fuck you, Tim Porygon's in. This game's great.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, that was a lot. I feel like that was a lot of information to take in, but I guess I'm more with Greg on this, which is not a surprise because we're the same. But yeah, like you can walk around during the battles. Like I think there's just like a lot of small things to love about it. I think Pokemon at this point is such an established franchise. It really does come down to the details, and I can totally get the visual and the exploration stuff doesn't hit as much as it could have if it was designed differently. Like it's a lot more like this is a big open space where you're catching the Pokemon and you're not really doing a lot else. And that's why there's not a lot else to do. You're not going to go like, at least to my knowledge, go like underground and explore stuff. And then you open up a secret. Like it's not like that. It's just a big area that has like other areas connected to it. But I'm fine with that because I'm just here to like work on catching the Pokemon. I also like the strong versus agile style a lot. Kind of reminds me of like a Babe version of Bravely Default where you have the brave and defaulting. I like that you can bring up this, like I've always been someone that struggled understanding and utilizing the speed stat. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to play it all basic. I barely know fire versus water versus magic. I don't know, right? I'm just here with my animals. That's what I'm here to do. But I like that you can drop down and see how the speed affects the order. Like there's a lot of little things like that I'm enjoying with it. But yeah, so there you go. I don't know. I can get my hair cut really early, which is nice.
Yeah, no, and honestly, that is a good point because like I want our characters to look how we want them to, and I appreciate that this game lets us at least start to do that as early as it does because normal Pokemon games take a little bit of time to get there. But I'm sure we're going to talk about Pokemon Legends more as the weeks go on. Go for it, Jan.
Also, the last thing is, I like this is like a dumb thing that I like. Maybe only I like this, but you can like pass out, like, because your Pokemon can pass out, but you can pass out in the wild, and then you drop your satchel with all your stuff. There's like inventory management, that's a big thing. But you can find other people's satchels, and you get MP for it, and you can use that for items. I'm obsessed with finding these satchels. It's dumb. It's not even that interesting. It just, my lizard brain loves, like, I look on the map and then I'm looking, you can barely see it. They could have made it sparkle or something, but I'm finding satchels and I'm like, I'm a pillar in the community, baby. Like, I'm here. And if you fall, I got you. Ain't no one losing items when I'm logged on because I'm out here. And then you have like the writables really easily there. You get that pretty early. Like, I'm, does it look great? Admittedly, no, but most Switch games don't. This doesn't. Wardeer jumps a little bit weird, but I'm riding a deer and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
I love you so much, Shannon.
Really quick, I feel like I'm in between everybody where I totally get like, especially Greg, where you're coming out with like the whole checklist thing. I love going into the Pokedex that you're building and being like, all right, well,
so do I. By the way,
hey, you already said you hate it. Fuck you. Just stay out of this. This is me and
you
Jared.
hate this game. Blessing hates Miles Morales. It's all good. I love going through like, I need to have Cyndaquil like do more quick attacks, right? Have him evolve and stuff like that. I love the where like when you go out on missions and then like come back and then you like report in like everything that you've caught. There's something just so satisfying about like it clicking and you getting more like money and XP at the end of all that like reporting and stuff like that I absolutely adore. But at the same time, I am like, after like 30 minutes, like I can't play this game for more than 30 minutes because I do get sleepy no matter what time of day. Because I thought it was just like, I'm playing it at night, I'm playing it late. That's probably what's happening. I can play this game 2 hours after I woke up, play it for 30 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I'm out. Like
that's how I feel. Yeah, I can't play a game for more than 15 minutes.
I want to jump in here because Barrett, you just brought up something that I actually really, really appreciate and love is that the task system of how it all works, of like how many times they've quick attacked and all that. I actually love that. Apply that to the main core Pokemon game, and all of a sudden, finding a Zubat for the 3,000th time becomes a little bit more interesting because you're trying to like actually work towards a goal. I love that stuff. I can't wait till the two mainline Pokemon series converge at some point.
I honestly,
and we're a decade away from that, but it's going to be really cool.
I don't want another Legends. I'm going to be honest. I want them to take what they learned from this game and just start integrating it into more mainline. Like you and I talked about this like offline. Like there are so many cool ideas. And I'm like you, like I miss having battles regularly. I miss, like going to gyms and stuff like that. It felt like you're building up to something. But then at the same time, I love the kind of checklisting and also like not running into Pokemon feeling like a chore and stuff like that. Like they weirdly did kind of the Let's Go thing, but made it less, you gotta, do the motion control of throwing the ball and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. And I think gets people like Greg into it because of that kind of stuff. And so it's an interesting, like I'm in that weird, like it's never going to go on sale kind of thing, but like, I think
I hope I love this game.
I think it's worth like checking out maybe at one point when it's like a less busier time is what I'll say.
To close the show, I'm going to say it's a step forward.
Yes.
I'm not going to give a kind of funny ranking on it, but it is a step forward. And with that, everyone, this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Please leave a comment below. What are you thinking about Arceus? What are you thinking about Dying Light 2? Until next time, I love you all. And if you are a patreon.com/kindoffunnygames supporter, we got a post show for you. It's another what? Blessing?
It's another bless who?
Woo!
Oh, God,
Until
no.
next time. Love you all.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
exactly.